So the technique and intensity paradox. So of course you got to do a lot of things to master the sport, but it's weightlifting. So you got to blend the two sides of that continuum. But the beginner and the advanced level lifter have radically different needs. The beginner needs technical changes which will lead to those earlier PRs like I mentioned. So having them chase the squat early on doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It's all about, they'll come in and I think of it as practicing the snatch today. The programming is a little bit looser at that point. I do a lot more of the technical drills, the pausing type drills that we'll look at, but they're just practicing the lift. I don't have a specific tonnage or anything like that I want them to do. In the beginner, the periodization is almost useless until they really start to require more sophisticated means of periodization. But what we're looking for is consistency and optimization of their skills. So A, can they do a perfect snatch, but B, is it one out every 10 days? So I really want them to be consistent with it and having the same style and approach each time. The advanced, as their technique improves, they'll have diminishing returns with technique, and as long as it's consistent, they'll really have a requirement to get much stronger in order to lift greater loads. But I would say that there's no magic technique that will add 20 kilos to your lift, but adding 20 kilos of strength might. So at that point, a lot of coaches still even to this day are taking elite level lifters and they're hammering their head against the wall about technique, technique, technique. That's important. It has to be as perfect as possible, but that magic technique after a certain point will not put 20 kilos on that lift. You need to be safe. You need to optimize that. I'm not downplaying technique by any means, but the more you hit those snatches and cleans and over and over and over, you're not going to work a miracle in one day. You're wasting energy for your strength training work. But that is the advanced level lifter's needs versus the beginner. So much different worlds we're talking about. So one thing I like to say to the guys though is some of my more advanced lifters that are getting really frustrated and they're beat up and I've been squatting them to death, pulling them to death, and they feel like they're getting worse. And I simply tell them, how long is it going to take you in your life to squat 300 kilograms? Your entire life. Unless they walk in the door that way, it's going to take them a long time to get world-class level strength. But I can fix your technique in a matter of seconds. I can say one cue or do one little thing that will tighten you up and perfect that. I'm always going to throw them in there, but I got to keep that in respect as you're looking at the workout for the day and their total programming and training. So flogging technique. So a classic statement I hear early on from people is, I'm working on technique today. And they come in and they snatch the bar and say 30% of what they're capable of for 2 hours. And then they never build up the competency or confidence to really add any weight to the bar and actually do any real weightlifting. They got to really break from that and realize, you're going to be the best, 50 kilo snatcher on earth when they're capable of snatching 120. There's a time and place for that, but the best way to really put the acid test to your technique is to take it to your technical limit. That doesn't mean PR, that doesn't mean a max lift for the day. It means, what is your technical limit for that day? So once you've established with the bar that you can lift it as optimally as possible, then from there it's take that weight as heavy as possible until you start to break down. Then that's when you got to call it quits and work on perhaps some auxiliary technique type work. The other flip side of that equation, though, would be masking technique errors with more strength. So a lot of times, guys who are impatient want to be world champions in 6 months, they will just tend to get stronger and stronger and just be able to get away with problems and technical errors because they're freak strong, but they realize they don't realize they're setting themselves up for disaster. It can lead to injuries and problematic positions, and they get so strong that they can throw such a big weight up on themselves that they catch it in a compromised position and hurt themselves. So, there's a couple different ways to look at that coin. And the picture here, this is a Korean world champion, and you can see he's snatching 50 kilos in front of a mirror. You hear a lot of the old school kind of the nonsense and meathead stuff of, don't squat in front of a mirror, that kind of stuff. It makes sense, but you can see how focused he is on his technique, even at that world-class level with 50 freaking kilos. I mean, that's nothing. He can snatch that all day long in his sleep. But here he is, though, also snatching 165 at the Beijing Olympics. So you can see that he's on both sides of the coin. He's not going to snatch 165 because he magically does that 50 kilos so perfectly. So he trains heavy and he trains light. So it's just a very cool picture to see how someone so elite who's done this for probably a decade, 20-plus hours a week, still respects some of the little things like that. Bottom line, your technique will never be perfect and you'll never be too strong. So you need to address each of your priorities specifically each day. We'll work on technique every day and we're going to lift heavy ass weights every single day.